All right, I'll call this meeting to order. It's the Riverfront Improvement Commission on Tuesday, May 26, 2020. I'd welcome people in attendance, but I only think there's a fire chief in the back, so I think we're ready to go. Let's do a roll call.
Yes, so we have 7 members present. A quorum has been reached.
Okay, thank you. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of February 25th, 2020, our last meeting before isolation.
I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, before we go on, I do want to welcome Neil, who's in attendance, our new representative from the 5th Ward. We're excited to have you, and as soon as we can set up a time, I'd like to maybe spend a little time with you at 6 feet apart. I know that you've got to meet with Steve and discuss what's going on. It takes a couple of meetings, but all is good. Neil's replacing someone who had been on the commission for 18 years, Carl Romberg, and it's kind of weird that his last meeting would have been in March, and we would have said, hello and goodbye, and maybe went out for dinner or had a drink afterwards. But I think this is an opportune time for me to say, oh my goodness, I can't imagine 18 years of volunteer work on the same commission. Some of you are so young, you can't even hardly remember 18 years ago. But he did a wonderful job, and we wish Carl well, and we hope maybe that the city, as in the mayor's office, might recognize him in a little bit more formal way than my stringing together my thanks.
And I have submitted that request, so that's underway.
Perfect. So the next item on the agenda is finance. It's the approval of the disbursements. Are there any questions?
One thing I want to point out on the disbursements is that I went ahead, and usually it's just done by the previous month, but since we haven't met for a couple, I went ahead and included everything since the last time we did under the detailed version.
Are there any questions?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, Bill.
On the first page, Steve, there's a item miscellaneous under levy improvement 480690. And my question isn't the numbers. My question is, it reads 332.1% used up. So my question is, first of all, what the hell is miscellaneous?
Well, this is the account where our utilities, prorated utilities goes into. It also is a catch-all. For example, we received a $30,000 payment from American Cruise Lines for capital improvements. It's not to be housed here, but it went into this account and will be removed and placed in a CIP account. So you see that significant elevation factor in this as well that has not come out of there yet. I would also say that you're going to see that elevated, I believe, this year because we've got a number of tenants that are working to catch up from last year still, and so we're seeing some extra payments being made, and then there was kind of a little bit of a drop off from that because of the pandemic and winter and whatnot. I would make you aware that I think it's obvious already, but that it's likely to be a good year. Certainly, as we conclude this fiscal year at the end of June, we're not going to be. It's not going to be balanced out. I would look for us budget-wise to still need several months into the new fiscal year for many of these to catch up, and so the budget's not going to be in balance for this current fiscal year, which ends just in several weeks, about a month.
Yeah, but Steve, don't they at the end, don't they move those back? Previous month's rents, if it comes in before September, don't they move it back into this fiscal year, the rent?
Yes, but I'm saying it's not gonna
We're
look
not
clean
gonna see
in
it.
real time.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
gonna look clean in real time,
Yeah,
but yes,
so-
absolutely, and we're
yeah.
tracking that. I work with finance on
Yeah,
that, but
it probably in
it's gonna be
September,
months.
we'll figure it out
You're
where we
right.
are at the end
Yes.
of the year. All right.
Is there anything else?
I don't think I asked for a motion in a second, did I, on this one? Motion to approve the disbursements?
I move approval.
Second? Second. Okay, we have a second. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's approved. All right, now under leases, let's look at the lease that Steve handed out.
It's the one with some yellow highlighted.
Yeah,
marks.
so unlike normal, or normally we would discuss it in 1 month and approve it in the next, but this is one that needs to be approved at the same meeting. It really, it's the same business, it's a 3-year lease. It basically says exactly the same. The changes really are 36 months. That there, we want to go through the number 10, what was actually taken out.
Yeah, so at one point I just changed the date on the first page, and that second part had said 33 months, but had the number 36, so we just changed that. Under number 10, taxes on page 3, I had not removed some of the verbiage from our initial lease agreement 2.5 years ago, and it just didn't make sense. It was superfluous at this point, so I just removed that. Also, I highlighted under general liability, general aggregate amount from 1 million to 2, which is consistent with what we request. And then the last one on the last page, second to last page, is just adding our chairwoman's name and title. And so, yes, this is the same terms, if you will, from a space standpoint. These are really good tenants. They're not quite ready to take on the entire space. That is to say, there are 2 buildings on this land. The one is the workshop, you might recall. They occupy that, but another one is a smaller building that once was used for some retail under a previous tenant, and they just currently don't have the wherewithal, but I think growing interest, and I think we could always come back if we reached agreement inside of this term and talk about that. At this point, though, it makes sense for renewal.
Steve, when we started dealing with Ruggenbergs, they didn't want all the land where the boats were. And I've lost track of where the land is that they don't use. When I look at this, I see all boats everywhere.
Yeah, so it's mostly along the river side, downstream from the workshop building. The large building is where they really don't have it under lease. It's mostly, what they do have under lease is mostly where you see boats are, and there may be some encroachment. I don't police
Then
that.
nobody has it under lease,
Correct.
right? Nobody.
Correct.
And, it's been a real win for us because Waukeen's was so bad for so long.
Right.
And Ruggenbergs have been successful in the first year. So I just wanted to make sure there's an area of land there that they could all of a sudden want.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We continue to talk about this. I just think that given the flooding last year and the 2020 so far this year, they're just not ready to take on more at this point, and the lease renewal time period was up. And so I basically advocate for a renewal in this way, and then we can always come back to the table.
So the picture that's here is the preceding boat guy?
Yeah, that's
So
not-
ignore all the boats?
Yeah, this
and
is
all-
not-
All
right.
sections, because the one downstream is not being used.
Right,
All right.
that's right. It's not
Not
in real
exactly
time.
the attachment you probably want to use then, unless you want to X through it.
The orange is actually
Yeah.
stating where their land under lease is.
All right, now, a motion, a second? We have to, okay. Motion?
I move we accept the lease for the marine specialist.
All right.
I second it.
All right. Bill and Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. All right, this next one, QC Cultivate, is a discussion, so you want to?
Yeah, so there's no action on this tonight, but this is basically a follow-up to a previous action that we had when we talked about the former deli at the Freight House and the involvement of the Freight House Farmers Market. What is being done at this stage in order to move that opening along, there's still this great interest to have a partnership with us and this new 501c3 and the Freight House Farmers Market. But in lieu of having a direct relationship, a new 501c3 has been created. It is called QC Cultivate, and it will be made up of some vendors, and again, it'll be in connection with, in partnership with the Freight House Farmers Market to have a dining establishment of some sort. Nothing's changed from what we've talked about previously here. We're hoping later this summer. I mean, we've had some setbacks. We have done some work in there, from inventorying to cleaning up. There's a lot to clean up in there, to be honest with you, and to get it ready for something, for the public. And then, of course, the last couple months have not been necessarily an easy thing to recruit some help, in doing some of this additional cleanup and readying ourselves for opening. But I envision yet this summer to have this dining establishment ready, okay? And I think that this is, from a governance standpoint, the best thing. It has us involved, but not carrying the full weight of it all. And I think being a not-for-profit and connected with the farmers market in some capacity is helpful, because I think that is kind of I think that's going to be what makes it successful, actually. I think having a place that is farm to table physically at the farmers market, at the Freight House, is what's important here. So it will be, and next meeting I can have a representative here as well. I just didn't think it was necessary this evening, but action can be taken at the next meeting. Okay. Are there any questions?
Yeah, maybe I'll lead off. It's a 2-year lease
Yes.
versus a 3, and
Yes.
then I think the general liability insurance should match the other one.
Yep.
I don't know, I mean, nothing has really changed. When we see it next month, I'm not really sure if we have to have someone come.
Okay. Good.
I mean, unless the rest of you, I mean,
Let me know if anyone
unless
wants to.
something new or they have dates to talk to us about, I think, in considering safety, I think you can probably relay it to us.
It's kind of where I was erring tonight, and I'm assuming the next few meetings will be much like that too.
Yeah.
Nothing
All right,
else
any questions?
I got a question.
All
Steve, I
right,
think it's bookkeeping, but the first page of the lease agreement, it's for Quad City Cultivate. But when you go back to the signature, it's Freight House Farmers Market.
Thank you.
No, is that just a bookkeeping? Huh?
Yep.
Okay, good.
any other questions? All right, we'll talk about it and vote on it next month. That brings us to projects, which is kind of in your wheelhouse too, so to speak.
Yep. So I'm going to trade places here with Chief Carlston, who's going to talk to you a little bit, provide an update. He's got a couple handouts regarding an email communication that was sent to you some time ago about a federal grant opportunity that the fire department submitted for permanent housing of the existing fire rescue boathouse along Centennial Park area. It is currently there, but seasonally. And the chief will talk to you a little bit about their plans, so. While you're talking,
I got a few extras.
Welcome, Chief.
Well, hello, thank you.
Looking forward to hearing about it.
Okay, as Mr. Aaron said, my name is Mike Carlson. I'm the Davenport Fire Chief. We'll give you a little bit of history if some people don't know exactly where we're at with the boathouse that we have. Probably about 7 or 8 years ago, we were able to capture a Coast Guard grant. With that, we were able to buy this boathouse, and it right now currently sits on the wall down there, Centennial Park area. One of the things with this boathouse is it cannot stay in moving ice. So during the winter months, we can take it somewhere, it can be frozen in, but just due to the nature of ice and the current in the river, we can't leave it where it's at its current location. So we've kind of looked at some different options of what it would take to try to get around that. We thought maybe possibly some sort of berm or diversion out in front to kind of block that. Last year's flood really kind of pointed out some of the weaknesses with that plan. So with that, we talked to some different vendors of what would actually work with this project. And what you see is on the front page is a conceptual drawing. Basically, the yellow, this is a aerial view of the boathouse when it's currently down there, Centennial Park. And it would actually just be a diverter. And below the picture there is a type of diverter that we would actually use that would actually divert debris away from where the boathouse is, but also works at ice. And so if we had this, it's large enough that not only would it keep the debris out during the summer months, but it would also keep any ice chunks and everything else, move that down with the current so we wouldn't have that in actual moving current. The second page you see is an actual drawing. It's, again, conceptual drawing. It's from Tiger Docks. They are the manufacturer of the boathouse. Basically, this is the boathouse that we currently have. The only difference is if you look down towards the bottom of the page, you'll see 2 green circles down there. Those would be the posts for the pillars, and the pillars would go ahead and go so the boathouse could ride up and down as water levels change. On the front, you'll notice that that diverter that we have has anchor systems. With that, we've talked to the manufacturers. We may want to go with a pillar for that also. So again, just due to flooding conditions that we have around here, that would ride up and down. We did talk to Mr. Aarons about this last February, I believe it was, just because we knew this Coast Guard grant was coming up and we wanted to put in for it. Some of the ballpark numbers we're looking at is for the diverter, we're looking at probably $65,000 to $70,000. Tiger Docks is looking at probably $20,000 to $25,000. We have talked to the Corps of Engineer. Right now, their initial thoughts are we would not need a mussel study for any work that would be done down there. But if we did need to have a mussel study done, that would probably be an additional $15,000. So what we did put in, we put in for a $125,000 grant because we would have to have a local engineer validate this whole process and do the work for us. But as we were moving forward, we wanted to make sure we kept everyone in this group here informed of what was going on your riverfront here in Davenport. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Are there any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead, Bill.
So Chief, thanks for being here. So you obviously feel that it's advantageous to have that facility available even in the winter, dead of winter?
We don't really need it there as much of the dead of winter, but right now, if you've driven along the riverfront, our boathouse is still up in the pool up above the dam. And it's because it's a coordinated effort with working with the Coast Guard, working with public works agencies and the fire department to make sure that we get it put in place at the right time. If we had this as a permanent location, we could have had this boathouse in service for the last 2 months and had about our boat actually in there. When we kept the boat over at Sunset Marina, because that was in the same pool, it was last July before we were able to get it out of there. This last year, we were able to work out arrangements and we were up in the Lindsay, but with they wanted to open up in April for their customers to come in. So we had to get the boathouse out of there. If we had this in a permanent location, we wouldn't have to inconvenience anyone else and we would always have it in service as soon as the weather would allow.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? It says action here. So what do you?
Chief, here.
Yes, sir.
I've moored boats all over the United, the inland waterways, and if you want me to review it with you, I'll do it. I'm gonna
Okay.
help you. There's a
Thank you,
plan.
sir.
Steve, are you thinking that we should approve this?
I think to have a motion to assist, even though the grant's has been submitted, to have from this body would be important, yes.
Okay, so is the motion to write a letter of
I think it's
Of-
just support,
support?
right, which
Or-
seems after the fact, so it's not probably really a letter now.
It was our intention to come before you much sooner, but we haven't been able to get together.
Okay, so you just want it in the minutes that we support the project?
Madam Chair, I have one more question. So is your grant, will it fully fund this request for finance or?
That's something that we're going to have to work with the city finance. Right now, we do have a project in the city CIP process, 5 years out. If our dollar amounts cover the whole thing, then hopefully we'll get everything covered. By
The
Coast
grant,
Guard
the
grant.
grant, you mean?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so does someone want to make a motion to support this? Okay, Neil,
I make a motion to approve.
is there a second?
Second.
Dennis seconds it. All right, all in favor? Aye. Aye. All right, there you go.
All right, thank you very much.
Oh, now we're to bylaws.
Thank you, Chief.
Given the pandemic, I guess most of you realize when you read the bylaws, there is no way for us to have a remote meeting. And it seems kind of crazy. I've been in local government pretty much my entire life, and 40 years, and almost every one of those, somebody could call in and vote. I also think there should be a way, when, like the mayor says, we're at a place where we're not having meetings, that we could all be remote and still have a quorum under those circumstances. And so, Ryan, I know you looked at some things. That kind of, to me, covers maybe the big one where we could maybe all be remote and be safe. So, if there's another wave, Steve could be here all alone, or the two of us could be here, and everybody could then be on the phone, and we could have a meeting, and it would be a real meeting. Right now, we have to have a quorum. Also, if you're on the phone, like we were going to have people on the phone, under our current bylaws, your vote doesn't count. And I know that those bylaws were in place, I think generally is because they want us, because we only have 12 meetings, to show up physically and be present. But I think in this world today, and looking around the room, while you may be out of town for work, you still probably can pull yourself away with the phone that you have and be able to attend the meeting. And I think you should be able to vote. I don't know how, there's some language here, I don't know if we really cover it, but I do believe that, I think currently, if you miss 3 meetings in a row, then you're in serious trouble. Really, if you miss 3 meetings in person, you should value, should I be a commissioner? But I think you should be able to be on the line with any meeting and be able to vote. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think we have one thing is we want people to show up and be in attendance. There's something about physically being present because, we have some serious business. This is just not an advisory board. I mean, we do work that has meaning and has consequence and is timely. But I also think that having the ability to call in and be part of the process is something we should do. So I'm not really sure, I'm looking to you to kind of help, what the exact wordage would be in the change of the bylaw.
I can direct your attention to the differences, or at least the existing versus some draft language, and then what we need to do according to the bylaws, if the desire is to enact this fairly, expeditiously, would be to bring it up for approval at the next meeting. So I would like to leave here tonight with an embracing of some language, because otherwise, to me, that would mean 2 other meetings, not just 1 other meeting, if we didn't do that, if we punt the language making and don't have it tonight.
So to change the bylaws, you have to read it and be okay with it physically in 1 meeting, and then the next one you vote on it, and then it can happen. So we still have to do this 1 more time to get 7 as a quorum.
Right. And so 3.5C under voting says, members shall be physically present at the meeting in order to exercise their vote. Proxy voting, mail voting, or telephone voting are prohibited. And on your last page of your packet, one, just to get us, to the discussion stage, that would be the draft language. Members are encouraged to be physically present at the meeting in order to exercise their vote. However, members may also exercise their vote via telephone and or video conferencing.
But does that get us to where we can have a quorum remotely?
Yeah, I read it if
it
doesn't say
section?
otherwise that it would, but.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was looking at was, if we want to take what Dee said, I think it would be changing something about what is the definition of being present or quorum or something I need to look through and see. But we can definitely do that.
So I think the language, Brian, that Steve has proposed will work for us voting by telephone. What it won't allow us to do is have that remote meeting where the quorum is not present. And you did some language, so maybe.
Yeah, so initially my suggestion was just based on what the bylaws were before to say they have to be in person to vote except under extraordinary circumstances. And then the chair can declare when it is extraordinary circumstances. Giving us the option under, situations like we are now where we would be able to vote by telephone or some other method. But Dee, I understand what you're saying.
So if we don't mess with the vote, with what you're doing, but bring that up into the quorum thing?
I think so. Yeah. So I don't know if it's quorum. There may be another section that defines.
3.4 says quorum, but all 3.4A says is a majority of commissioners shall constitute a quorum.
Well, read the next one. The affirmative vote of majority of the members present shall be required to exercise blah, 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 blah.
Maybe we strike present. I mean,
Well, no, I'm just wondering if you can have another section which allows in emergencies that a quorum can be met by telephone.
subject to the chair, like you had talked about.
Something like, we
Subject
can
of
do
the
something
chair,
like that.
Extraordinary
That's what I'm
circumstances.
saying, the extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah, subject to the chair, and so what I would suggest then is maybe,
Changeable.
or define present, say what present is, or something like that, where we can say present is in person or under extraordinary circumstances as declared by the chair, voting by
That's a good idea.
telephone or
Could you
something
just
else.
add a sentence to the revision of 3.5C right now? That what we have, but Steve has suggested, and just add a sentence relating
Well,
to.
That's the
What?
voting section. That's a voting section. We want it under quorum because we want to designate in the bylaws that you can have a quorum of people who are on the phone, and that's not where the voting is. So I think we have to fix both.
So
of those.
so 3.5C is, as presented, is probably
What you wrote,
acceptable, but then going back under quorum, section 3.4B could be, are we talking about it being rewritten or a sentence being added to it?
Well, it could be a
That
phrase
defines-
after present.
Madam Chair,
Neil,
if
go
I could
ahead.
say something real quick. So if we just, for 3.5.C, if we just added after physically present or physically or virtually present, and then struck the last line of proxy voting, mail voting, or telephone voting are prohibited, then that would cover all the bases, I think. I don't know. Because
Yeah,
then,
the new C, look on the back page on 6 is the new C.
Physically and virtually present, you're saying?
And we're,
or virtually. So that way.
So that
someone's there for the whole
presence,
meeting.
see,
Yeah.
what Neil's then saying is then you don't have to address it in 3.4 perhaps. You don't, because present is defined now by saying physical, or physically as well as virtually. Then we don't have two sections.
Can you hear me? I don't.
Speak louder.
I don't think I'm doing this.
There you
Oh,
go.
there, okay.
There you
no,
go.
it's me.
I agree with what you were saying also about quorum is not addressed in the quorum section, so we don't, it's assumed. So, not assumed, but like what Neil was saying, like if you fix it in 3.5C, then quorum is quorum, whether they're here or not.
So then,
We don't have.
I'm going to ask this question. So then present in 3.4B means present on the phone?
It,
Could be.
it means two things now if you add virtually to physically
Yeah.
present.
Present could be, yeah, virtually as well as, yeah.
They're being signed on.
So, yeah. So ideally, what we would do is both, have probably a better definition of quorum, also define what present is, and then also the ability to vote, right? So we
Right.
cover all bases. I mean, the fix that we said was fine. We can do it that way. We can add present, whatever we want to do. So if we open it up and make these changes, then any member can call in for every single meeting, right? And I want to be cautious that, of course, we always want people that want to be here physically present for these meetings, but is there some type of way we can
Yeah.
strongly encourage people through these changes to still be present for meetings unless there are circumstances like this?
So I think that's why Steve wrote, encouraged to be physically present under
yeah.
that section, just to kind of reinforce for people, hey, I think you can miss 2 meetings in a row, but when you miss 3, it's a problem, but we only have 12.
Well, and
Am I right with that?
I don't even see that. I know that's been a policy, but I don't
Yeah,
I don't
but
see that.
what I think you may get is many people calling in and counting, they're not being physically present.
Right.
So, I mean, we could go into that section of what, a missed meeting is. I don't know. Or we could roll with this, get these changes, roll with it a year, and if we have a member that seems to always be by phone, maybe we address it then. We just say, hey.
I mean, as you pointed out earlier, we certainly have the emerging technology now covered in this space to support that. What we don't want is everyone meeting multiple times virtually, I don't think, because I think there's something lost. Just now, the chief had a handout because, it wasn't quite ready for inclusion in the packet. How do I get that very easily? Well, I guess we could actually put it on the screen and that sort of thing. So there is a way, but my point is, you lose something by not, I think we all recognize that. I think everyone who does this volunteerism thing recognizes that, but it might be best if we run this a bit and then we can always come back if it's being abused.
Yeah. And I like the idea of mail voting, maybe email voting. I don't think we should be doing that.
No, I'd prefer.
I think if we're going to vote, it's got to be in a meeting.
I think it's a
that's
meeting
recorded.
setting where we're accountable to the public and, yeah, absolutely. So essentially, just to recap, it's the draft language adding the word "and" virtually after physically present. Physically.
Would it be recommended to put something in there that would say like continuous, I don't know if you want to call it like abuse of virtual meetings, I don't know, is subject to like.
Every third meeting, you must show up once physically or something.
Yeah, just so, I guess, I feel like we all would be pretty good with just wanting to come in. This is just a weird time.
From a staff perspective, I would wait and see.
Okay.
If it's abused and then add that as necessary.
So are we changing 3.4B or just 3.5C?
I think the only thing would be changing with the new language, 3.5C, and the new addition to that language that you see on that page is and virtually after physically.
I would change that to or virtually.
Yep. Members are encouraged to be physically or virtually present at the meeting in order to exercise their vote. However, members may also exercise their vote. Wait, we don't need that. We're striking the last sentence. Yep. So just a single sentence, adding or virtually.
I do like the word encourage, but can we make it shall, like the original language?
Shall?
Yeah, physically or virtually. The shall it means must.
Yep, shall be, okay. Yep.
So we're not going to define present then, or that kind of does it. That does it. All right, I'm good.
One last time, members shall be physically or virtually present at the meeting in order to exercise their vote. Okay. So then we need that to be approved tonight.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All right, we'll see it in writing in the right place the next meeting.
I will send that out tomorrow. But I mean, right, with the next, okay, all right. Okay,
Fine. All right, that's taken care of. Excellent.
thank you.
Hopefully, we won't have another wave or whatever, and we're all on the down low again. Are we really talking about the strategic plan?
Well, what I wanted to provide is an update that we had hoped to initiate that strategic planning process for Credit Island in April, and we have not initiated that yet. I've been in contact with the Quad City Leadership Consulting, Kevin James, who we, along with Parks, are coordinating with, but we just really we prefer not to launch this initiative in a fashion like this. We want it to be a physically attended meeting initially. I think once we do that, if we have to have other means of meeting, fine, but I just think to launch, it's gonna be a difficult Zoom type meeting. So I see us having that initiative begin in June. I mean, I think we'll be able to by the time we meet next in a month as a commission. Hopefully, probably just before that, we'll have launched that. That's at least a goal to keep this moving along. I think we need to try to, by the time that the city council has some of their CIP prioritizing and all of that happening in the late fall, it would be good of us to have completed or at least have some product to share with them. And so that we begin to crunch the time period that we have, and we don't want to rush anything either. So that's a goal. I'm telling you that's a goal. It doesn't mean that's gonna transpire, but there should be something to share by that time with council, as opposed to that going another year without it ranking very high because it's ill-defined. So at least we start now, we share what's going on, and we hope to have some product, if not final, by then.
Mike, are you on the line still?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. What is the steps for your advisory group? Are you meeting in person now? Are you doing remote? Kind of what do you see your future? Because you're the other half of this group. I mean, your group is the other half of what we're going to do.
Everything pretty well ground to a halt, but Richard had an email out. I think in the next few weeks, he's hoping to have a meeting of some sort, whether it be virtual or if we can possibly, in person. But at this point, nothing that I know of has happened.
Okay.
Kind of the same thing, Steve, they mentioned being in person since it's such a big project. So I'll check with him and I'll get back in touch with you, but nothing's come out other than an email saying that he wants to get rolling again.
Okay, all right.
You're talking about Parks Advisory, though,
Right,
as well.
Parks Advisory.
Hey, Michael,
Yes.
Steve here. Has Parks Advisory Council met in the last couple months?
No.
Okay. Are they slated to this month?
That's what he was talking about.
He was talking about this.
I think that he wants to, like I say, in the Credit Island part of it, I know he wants to get going again. And then the advisory council, they want to get that rolling. We did have a meeting where there were we did have a meeting, that's right. I'm losing track of time, where there were just 10 people present. So we've not really accomplished anything, but I know he wants to. So let me make sure and I'll get that to you.
I have been trying, Chad Dyson, the Parks Director, and I have talked about this and
Okay.
I think consistent with what I've just stated with, to you all, that is what our goal would be.
Well, to me, it's
in June.
basic, try to figure it out, though. I'm not in June, because the next time we meet is the end of June.
Right.
So probably get a timeline and kind of run it by us and
Like River's
because
Edge.
at some point in time, you're going to have citizen input. And I think it's just very,
It's going to be.
it's not
going
going to
be.
work.
Right, it's going to be, but
You can't-
does that mean, I'm not being facetious, but does that mean that we punt it, for an indefinite period of time?
Well, I think, I haven't kept following the governor's rules, but when we can get to 25 to 50 people, then I think then we can look at how we would do that.
There was some loosening today to start June 1st, but,
Yeah,
so,
she loosened up some
Right.
things today, but River's Edge is not available for meetings, is it? Our River's Edge, we're not able to have a meeting in there, are we?
well, to be honest, currently, there aren't any city facilities where more than 10 people in a room can occur.
So, but if you had less than 10, theoretically, you could use the River's Edge for a meeting, like our Veterans Memorial Park, Friends of Veteran Memorial Park, you could do that? Yeah?
Yeah, I don't.
Because we may have one, we have one scheduled, we meet the first Monday of each month as a rule.
Yeah, I don't
So-
know, why.
That would just be as of this week, though.
Yeah, that's
To be
all.
able to come in.
Yeah.
A lot of places have not yet quite opened up, even though they can. And I don't know what
I
City
think as
Hall's
part of her,
rules are.
not to get too far down a path, but I think as rec facilities, as part of the governor's ongoing clarification just today, opened up, I think
So
it's
we
as of
could
June
meet,
1st.
I'm thinking right now, getting some clarification from you guys, so we could have our Friends of Veteran Memorial Park meeting Monday or,
No, because that's not June 1st, it's May 31st, so maybe a following
No,
Monday.
the first Monday of June,
Yeah,
we could.
the 8th or something, sure.
Yeah, okay.
From what I know.
Yeah,
that seems
there's a
likely.
conference room there.
Yeah, we meet, that's where we usually meet.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, I just was trying to clarify if we could actually go ahead and have our June meeting or not.
I think
Okay,
backed up a week, but yeah.
All right, so what we'll hear from you is kind of what you think the timetable would be and how that would work. And kind of I think our goal was to have all 11 of us participate. So you have to keep that in mind too, how that would work. All right,
That
let
could
us
be
know.
difficult. Okay. The next item, Union Station interior and exterior. Interior, basically by the 15th of June, Visit Quad Cities will have this space open. I will tell you that what their plan is to have a counselor, visitor counselor on site with some renderings about what their build out looks like, and to spend the rest of the summer open, but with the renderings of the build out. And then by the end of summer, they will have completed that build out, okay? And so I'm happy about that because, in a perfect world, we would have rather had them ready to open fully mid-June, but given everything that we're encountering, this is a good split of that, I think, and probably by Labor Day weekend, they will have the build out. It'll look nice, it'll be a new space, new activated space, but they'll also have had some summer focus in there as well to get people back into the flow of things. Because they're planning to have, it's not just going to be opening the doors to the space. They want it to look right, they want it to be programmed right, and utilized much more than it has been traditionally. And so that's the latest on the interior part. The exterior part, we are working very closely with FEMA for what's called a 406, which is essentially a fancy number name for mitigation project for the exterior. So there's a two-pronged approach or two-phased approach to this work at the Union Station. One is to do a repair and replace of the existing, I mean, if you're down there, you can kind of see where we had the blowout of the parking lot. But then the mitigation project is something that is different funding, different process, and FEMA has to be excited about it, has to approve it based on some variables, okay? And so we're in the early stages of that being reviewed so that we'll get some feedback, hopefully, about the likelihood or not of such a project. Again, the repair and replace is, I mean, that's gonna happen anyway, but what we're trying to do is provide a intelligent design as a package for this whole thing. And of course, pieces of this, and you all have seen, except for Neil, some renderings of this space and how the Canadian Pacific Railroad line elevation has created a new opportunity, if you will, for different kind of access, meaning no access on the south side of Union Station. The access would be more pedestrian, but into that we would be provided with some flood protection. And so that's rudimentary here, but you all have had that presentation, and now FEMA is looking at it, as well. And so we'll see based on their feedback, but we want either phase. Well, I should say we want the repair replace to be a standalone. Like, if we don't get the FEMA mitigation funding project approved initially, we still need the repair and replace to occur. I mean, we can't leave it like it is.
Isn't it gonna go ahead anyways, given that it should be funded by the,
It's a different set of money.
when is that gonna be bid? Is it ready yet?
It's not ready yet. So.
Do you know?
I think some of it is again, waiting to see on the mitigation side, what is likely to be approved, because it kind of informs how far the
Do we
repair
have
and
a
replace.
cost estimate for the entire thing?
They're rough ones, I think 300,000 and 500,000 rough right now.
And what's the repair part?
300,000, and then the mitigation is more.
It's just
like
another 2 more or
500,000.
5 more? 2 more.
2 more. I think it's about 800,000 total
Oh.
between the two right now.
Wow.
Is what I'm seeing preliminarily from Graham. So.
What's the value of the building? I'm getting a little nervous here.
I need to look that up. I don't want to say
Okay,
it
yeah,
wrong.
we need to review that a little bit.
Right.
Thanks. Anybody else have questions about this project?
Yeah, there's one quick question. That plan you're talking about, Steve, I remember seeing a drawing once where there's, I don't know if that's the right term, but like a berm or something that's the plan you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, railroad.
And 2 things on the Canadian Pacific Railroad crossing, and then I want to mention a little bit about some 1930s sanitary sewer work being done, some very exciting stuff along the riverfront, but very important, actually. I'm not making a joke, because it's very important work. But the Canadian Pacific Railroad has gone out to bid with the projects. Each of these crossings is our understanding, and that what's being told to me is that they are reviewing the respondents at this point. That's not been shared with the city as far as I know, but it has gone through the bidding process. They own this project, and so the goal still remains the same, that all of these crossings would be addressed permanently this construction season. We've gotten a late start. I'm a little worried about that, but I think they have the incentive to move it along and do what they need to do to make sure we may be doubling up on, maybe that wasn't what was planned initially, but I think it likely is now, because I don't think they wish to go into a new construction season after winter for it. And so in many ways, that's, we probably haven't lost a whole lot of time given what they will do. I think the goal is still to start at, Marquette, and we've talked about the importance of even River Heritage Park down there with our cruise lines setting sail or stopping in August, if that remains on track. Some of these things are still up in the air. What I want to mention on the
the sewer work. Brad Guy, who's the city's project manager for that, it's mammoth. It's been years in the making. City Council has provided a huge dollar amount. I'm not sure how much offhand, if you know, but this to comply with the state's order for essentially, very simply, what's happening here is there's two sewer systems running, sanitary sewer systems running along the riverfront, the 1930s and 1970s, and basically we're detaching from the 1930s and sort of enhancing, therefore, the 1970s, and so there's you don't see wide swaths of being disturbed, but you see periodic ones where there's these actions taking place, okay? And so some of the things I want to just run through real quick, and I'm going to read it just so you know, because the project manager was nice enough after I asked him for a bit of an update to provide this. And so McClellan, these are all related, okay, different areas. McClellan Boulevard and River Drive, you probably see some things underway currently. He says, contractor has started back up in this area and lane reductions on River Drive will remain until work is completed. A deep structure is being built to reroute to existing sanitary sewer flows in the area. The construction and associated pavement replacement will last into June. Okay, I've got a few more, but I just
Yeah,
think
so
it's
basically
important.
what's going on there is they're detaching parts of it because they have too much inflow coming
That's right.
from other sections of the sanitary sewer
That
line. So they're
overwhelm the
trying to get rid
system.
of those cross connections,
That's right.
eliminate the storm water, that's the problem. It's not the sanitary flow, that could take a lot more flow, and so that's why they're doing it in different locations.
That's correct.
Okay.
And why I want to read some of this is because some of these areas we've been working together on because they affect some of our tenants, and I want you all to be aware of it as well, okay? And so like along the riverfront from Mound to College Avenue, multiple structures have been built in this area to redirect the sewers, Dee was saying. There are areas where the pavement has not been replaced because the manholes in the 30 sewer are to be excavated and abandoned when the pipe is completely taken out of service. Where needed, temporarily rock fill has been used to maintain access. I've been working with the Lake Davenport Sailing Club because they were wondering why it wasn't all put back together, for example, and this is how we communicate how the project is moving along. At Oneida Avenue, work will begin this summer to bore a new sewer main under the rail tracks and construct new manholes to redirect the sewer. Access to restaurant and sailboat club will be maintained during construction. Our tenant, we just renewed here at the marina, 935 East River Drive. Sewer service has been relocated, pavement and security fence has been replaced. There was some disruption that we were working with them on. River Heritage Park. Multiple existing manholes are scheduled to be excavated and removed when the 1930s sewer is abandoned. This work will take place later this year and into 2021. River Drive at Iowa and Perry Streets. New structures have been built at both locations to divert flows. Pavement replacement is completed up to the limits of the planned reconstruction of Canadian Pacific's rail crossings. So there's coordination going on as well. Abandonment of the 1930s pipe and manholes to take place later this year and into 2021. Brady Street to modern Woodman Park. Brady Street. Work has begun to build a new sewer connection and remove existing manholes. At Main Street, large structures have been built on Beiderbecke to reroute the sewer. Work will continue up Main Street to replace the existing sewer main from Beiderbecke to 3rd Street. This work is part of a separate contract but coordinated with the 1930s project. Trenchless replacement of the sewer is planned to help prevent utility and local business conflicts. This work is projected to be completed in July. Harrison Street, new manholes to be constructed after work on Brady Street is completed. Ripley Street, new manholes have been built and the pavement has been temporarily replaced due to the planned reconstruction of CP's rail crossing. At Scott Street, new manhole to be built near LeClaire Park Bandshell and existing infrastructure to be abandoned. This work to be done as project progresses westward. Modern Woodman Park, work has been completed in this area. Centennial Park behind River's Edge. Work on storm and sanitary sewer were halted due to spring flooding. All continue this summer. Gravel parking lot will be replaced by city crews when work is complete. Two more. River Drive, Gaines to Warren, summer 2020, significant road closure along River Drive as new sewer will be installed from Gaines to Warren. Access to River's edge at Modern Woodman Park to be maintained during construction. And lastly, River Drive, Myrtle to Marquette Street, fall 2020. Lane reductions along River Drive while new sewer is installed in park areas south of the road. So again, FYI, our tenants being communicated with, because I'm in contact with the project manager. There are lots of things going on with Canadian Pacific and this project along the riverfront, all of which are necessary, all of which are going to be very helpful, especially next year when we sort of get back to normal. So are there any questions?
Kind of a good time to do all this work since there's no baseball and others.
That way, because I think it's been a couple of years in the making, but it is doubt that way. Okay, yeah, there I'm back, I can tell. Then if you don't mind, I'll just finish with a couple other things here. So we did, I don't know if anyone noticed, but we did reach 18 feet flooding this spring. Seemed like other things were occupying our mind, but we did hit 18 and almost, I mean, I don't want to say without incident, but it certainly was not 2019. And so we've got our boat docks back in the water at Marquette Street, and cleanup continues to be underway along the riverfront. I would mention an exciting project that many of you may have grown tired already of me talking about, but the Freight House deck has been completed and is awesome, and we thank the City Council robustly for supporting that project. It's already being able to be used as people social distance and will be, I think, ready for sort of full use, hopefully in the next several weeks. And at that time, we will have some sort of official event, a ribbon cutting of sorts, of which I'll notify you about. But very exciting, come on down. We've actually heard lots of great comments about it, so it's fantastic. The contractor did an excellent job. So, related to that, Freight House Farmers Market has opened on Saturdays. It has sort of taken on fewer vendors in a larger space, sort of having aisles set up where their vendors are socially distanced, and they're encouraging all of the best practices. They plan to, on June, little less than 2 weeks, on June 6th, that weekend, open up sort of return to their normal Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday hours. Right at this time, up until then, they've just been doing Saturday morning hours, but they'll be trying to move those other days along. And also at that time, or very shortly thereafter, hope to open the indoor, which has been recently remodeled and is pretty exciting. I think a lot of people are going to love what awaits them, but they're just sort of waiting for some of this to play out. They did, out of some of this, the negativity of it all, some really cool things can happen. And what they did launch out of the pandemic was a market to go, basically an online ordering service that then all vendors can participate in, with up to, I think, 20 products per vendor. And so it's a very robust listing of vendors' products, and then they'll pack it together and you can pick it up at a defined time. And so it was born out of the pandemic, but honestly, it's one of those cool things that I think has some staying power and has proved very positive for vendors and the farmers market as well. So pretty exciting stuff there. And then I just want to let you know that I had to cancel the summer concert series that would have begun here the first weekend in June at the band shell. But all is not lost. I think what we will do or be able to do is later into the summer, I think we will be able to have one-off or single concert events And we might consider staging some of that at the Freight House to you know, in lieu of the band shell. We might be able to do a little bit of both, we'll see. But the Freight House, with our tenants and the businesses that have so struggled for the last 2 years, could use a lift. And if we stage something, you know, musical wise and connect it and sort of co-produce it with them, I think if they benefit, I mean, I think they will benefit. So I think that could be a very good thing. We could close off big area parking lot. People could bring their own chairs. They can still socially distance themselves from one another. But I've just kind of held off. We had to make a call early in the series, but I have told everyone that I think we'll still see some music happening, and maybe just some different ways. And I've held off on defining a schedule as of late because it's still all up in the air. It's starting to become more clarified, but I think we'll know more even in a month from now. So look for more information along those lines as well. That's what I have.
I have a question. Steve, was there somewhere in the past, I thought I remember, for the Channel Cat at Lindsay Park, new dock or something, is that still happening?
Very excited about that. It has also kind of taken a bit of a break, if you will. I mean, I hate to use those terms, but it slowed down the pace a little bit. But we received a $1.2 million federal grant, where the local share was $300,000. So the total project is 1.5 for dock replacement at the Channel Cat docking area. So we're talking about a new dock system there in Lower Lindsay, and also an area where people await the Channel Cat, a covering area, a nicer area so people aren't baking in the sun. I think we're talking about that happening at the earliest, at the latter part of 2021, likely opening of 2022 season, just because I won't bore you with details, but there's such things as muscle studies and some things like that are requirements of the grant. And so there's still some things to occur before that. And I noticed the pace at which we've been moving has slowed, and that makes me a little nervous about a 2021 season.
The funding is in place?
Funding was approved, yes, absolutely. Nothing has changed there. It's just the timing is more questionable at this point. Okay. But an exciting project. Thanks for bringing that up. Absolutely. This is in concert with Metrolink, by the way, who operates the Channel Cat.
All right, is that okay? Alderman Grip, could you maybe kind of bring us up to where the playground RFQ, and I'm not sure what process went when things got shut down, kind of what is the future of that?
So the future is to be determined. So it is in a indefinite pause situation, just because we are assessing the financial health of the city. And so there are a number of things that we put on pause to make sure that the city is in a good financial position going forward before we make any moves. This is one of them. So we did receive a dozen proposals, and they were incredible. Some of the best park design firms in the world applied, and if we're able to go forward with it, which I hope we will, because all indications right now are that the city of Davenport has been very conservative financially in the last decade, and we're in as good a position as any municipality in the Quad Cities right now. If we're able to move forward, I feel really good with the bids that were submitted. So to be determined on that.
Yeah. I just, even if the money was not an issue, I think it'd be very difficult in that portion that was going to be so public-faced to have that happen right now. So I think, a little bit of changes and.
Correct.
I think because I think it builds momentum. The whole idea of you seeing more than one firm with an idea. We did that with the Sky Bridge. I know that people have other terms for it, but it was incredible the number of people who came out. It was incredible how much hype and excitement that alone built, and feeling good about a major project that's coming along. And so it would be really, I think at this time, you could not produce that same sensation. So it's probably for more than one reason, kind of good that it's just sitting for a while.
Correct, yep, there were multiple reasons, that was one of them, and so, to be determined what that looks like moving forward, but as you guys heard, this year is going to be a year of construction on our riverfront, and access is going to be impeded quite a bit, and that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
So the backhoe's down there now, that's the sewer plan that's going, the project that's going on?
Yep.
Are those 12 proposals, can we see those?
I don't think they're being released yet. So they've been scored. They're being scored by the committee, the task force, and then they're being held until the city council makes a decision whether to move away from it or to press go on it again.
But you were impressed.
Very impressed, yes.
Cool. That's good. Michael, are you still on the line? Do you have something for us? You got tired of us. All right. I would say public, but I don't know if Judith wants to talk or not. Is she on the line still? I don't hear anything.
I am still on the line, and no, I'm just watching and enjoying, and thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, I think we're at adjournment. Somebody want to do that? Motion to adjourn, so moved, second? All right.
Second.
All right, cool. We're done.